Oh, have we started? Has OBS decided not to be a dick? There we go. Oh, God. Well, nobody watches these anyway. Hello and welcome to the Bilgecast experience. um, hello, and welcome to the Bilgecast Wrestling Podcast with me, Ollie Johnson, and my colleagues Sam Congrave and Ian Burrows. How you doing, guys?
I'm doing
Howdy
good.
ho.
Yeah, and in keeping with recent WWE traditions, this podcast is now a 2 out of 3 falls podcast. Don't ask how that works.
Oh, God damn it, Ollie.
Incidentally, Sam, did you know that Seth Rollins is Becky Lynch's boyfriend?
Did you know that Seth Rollins apparently has no balls now, according to Twitter?
I did not know that.
Basically, coward, but he finally stopped being a cunt online and, ruining the company's image enough to crawl back and apologize and call himself a piece of shit.
Well, he was being a bit. Yeah.
He was basically, he asked a question, it was answered, and then he became a smart dick, and he even admitted he lost the argument the second he started doing the whole comparing bank accounts thing. Knew full well what he was saying was trash, which is basically translation for I said something stupid online, and WWE are now telling me to apologize for it.
I don't think that's necessarily him having no balls. It's him, owning up to the fact that he said something stupid.
Look, oh no, he's only owning up to it because the company, we told him to do it at this point. Because let's face it, the internet have been having a fucking laugh at Seth's face. Like, look, there are people who do your job much better than you. Deal with it.
Right.
Well, he gave the stock response that we always makes its employees give. I'm sorry for what I said, but the product I work for is the best thing ever.
And I have dreamed of being there ever since I was a wee lad.
Yeah, because apparently, this is the problem they face every time a WWE wrestler tries to argue with any outside who doesn't have the limitations. Roman Reigns always loses to Tama Tonga, and Seth loses to literally everybody because he's wrestling's greatest plagiarist at this point.
I thought you liked Seth Rollins.
I like Seth, but I don't think he's as good at he's good at what he does, and what he does at this point is basically copy whoever's popular that week. He's kind of like a very serious. He's like a very serious.
Sam, I've got to tell you, I watched the Kenny Omega Hiroshi Tanahashi match from Wrestle Kingdom 13 yesterday.
Now I have to ask though, if you're going to do that, did you notice that his theme music was literally just music from Undertale?
I did, and I knew the exact version. It was a YouTube cover.
Yeah, he literally got Toby Fox to do it. He even had like an entire video made where he did an entire fight with Tanahashi in the format.
Yeah, I saw. Like he had.
Also, I have to throw this out. Speaking of Kenny Omega, you see the thing at Flyer Fest where just after the Young Bucks came out, DDP ran up the lights went out, and he got hit with a Shun Goku Satsu and died.
Oh. And,
this is rest or the Triple Team Hadoken.
Yeah, I was just about to mention the Triple Team Hadoken. Did you see the kickoff show for Fight Fest?
I did.
Where Michael Nakazawa, which is a brilliant name by the way, apart from doing his whole baby oil shtick, choked him out with a GameCube controller.
It was at a fight. It's almost like you realise that they're at a fighting game tournament. I mean, for fuck's sake, one of the women was dressed up as one of the fighters from Killer Instinct, from what I was told.
I didn't recognise that when I saw it, but cool.
It was the woman in green in that triple threat women's match.
Yeah. So, right. So yeah, Fighter Fest was friggin' great.
Jim Cornette shit all over it as he always does. But I think what everyone needs to understand is this is not a regular show thing. A lot of these guys are unknown to TV public. It is a way for people to meet these people and learn who they are before they end up on television.
Yeah, so you can go big and a bit ridiculous with it like that, because you've got
So did you see that main event and the drawing pins going into the feet? I still can't walk
to...
straight out.
Yeah, you just reminded me of that. Oof.
I mean, I mean, this is a personal thing. I know this is not what's actually happened, but I personally think that the match that John Moxley had was probably what Dean wanted to do with Brock Lesnar. But if you've heard the interview, Brock apparently didn't want to do anything.
Yeah.
He didn't
Well,
want to have fun in the match. But this is like, I mean, again, also, I think another reason Seth apologizes is because he shit all over Dean Ambrose. Yeah, he
right.
literally took a mad shit on Dean Ambrose and said some people just aren't fit to work in WWE or good enough. And Dean Ambrose, he took his ball and he left because he couldn't hack WWE. And
WWE couldn't hack him.
I think Jack the Jobber said he didn't take his ball and take it and go home. He's taking it to G1, which is a massive fucking tournament of grueling proportions that you could never do. Which is the G1 is fucking intense. I mean, Seth, I'll give credit to Seth. Congratulations on stealing people's finishers, gimmicks, and everything else for the last few years. And you did do an hour-long match on Raw. Well done. But, you know, for New Japan, that's like once a pay-per-view. It's kind of regular.
Yeah, I want to start watching New Japan more regularly, but who has the time for...
Well, with wrestling this week alone, I mean, we should get on to the fact that Raw was its quality, I will admit, was up this week in certain areas.
There at least was there were improvements to the pacing. I'll give it that. Although
They destroyed the set, which hasn't. This is something WWE does a lot of, especially on Raw. You may not be old enough to remember when we wanted to get rid of the old Raw set, so Stone Cold had the Big Show pull it down, so Stone Cold could personally destroy the Titantron.
I don't remember that.
Of course you don't. It was a very long time ago, but you know they've destroyed the set. That was pretty fucking intense.
Yeah.
Also, well, Drake, I know we're going to talk about the 24/7 title thing.
Yeah. It's still fun.
One of the banes of watching the show.
It's one of my favorite parts of the show.
It's one of your favorites, but you know, I know some people are saying
you're just upset because it's not Crash Holly.
You do realize the hardcore title was more than just Crash Holly.
No, it wasn't.
Okay. Yes, it was. There was more than that. I mean, Crash wasn't even involved in what made it fun to begin with. Crash just happened to be one of the people synonymous with the belt towards the end of its existence. But the thing was, it was also the wild and wacky situations. There wasn't a conga line every week of people chasing the hardcore champion. It was just a hardcore champion going out of his business. Someone random would just attack him.
Well, that's been happening. Like,
it
just
hasn't
not
though.
On the shows.
It's the same group of people though, just following R-Truth around. And goddamn, Carmella can just go fuck off. Can we have that, please? Can Carmella just fuck off? You're making me agree with Alexa Bliss, for God's sake.
Well, what's wrong with Carmella? Like, I mean, she's a lot more entertaining in this capacity than she was when she was women's champion.
I kind of feel that this is a punishment for her fucking Corey Graves. That was a thing.
What, more airtime?
Well, being stuck with R-Truth, apparently being stuck with him is somehow a punishment. It's kind of the equivalent of being hit on the head and someone thinking they're punishing you by hitting you, but really they're just giving you a bunch of fivers.
Right.
It's really hard to explain, but look, Carmella is quote-unquote being punished by being with R-Truth. I mean, WWE have given up on the 24/7 title and don't see it as worth, interest at this point anyway. It's an extra bit. They've committed to it. They've got to follow through. I would like it.
Champions by popularity, and R-Truth came up on top.
like it to move on from R-Truth, though, and, have other people instead of goddamn Maverick and his wife, who I guarantee at some point will probably pin someone to win the belt.
Yeah, Mrs. Maverick.
Yeah, she won't have a name. She'll just be Miss Maverick, Mrs. Maverick. Why do I get that we're going to have a whole thing where Drake Maverick is fucking her or holding the belt, and then just he gets off the bed and then goes to have a drink and refresh and comes back in, and R-Truth's going to be in the bed somehow, and then like attack him, pin him. If that happens, I swear, I just know that I fucking called it. I mean, let's face it. This is the first. This is the first week of the Paul Heyman, Eric Bischoff era.
Yeah. I'm impressed. There's been an entire show of SmackDown without a massive faction of wrestlers trying to take over everything.
Well, here's the thing, Ollie. It's ultimately going to fail because it doesn't really matter because they've still got to answer to Vince. So what? You might as well not bring them in.
I think it defies logic to have Paul Heyman on Raw and Bischoff on SmackDown because
they were the GMs of the opposing show at some point.
Well, no, it's because the opposing shows suit them better.
Granted,
is more the drama and the skits and everything, and that's what Raw is. SmackDown has always been the wrestlers' wrestling show, which is why I've always preferred it, especially since the last brand split. And even before they got rid of the original brand split, SmackDown was more for the wrestling show. It was the work rate show. And that just seems to suit Paul Heyman better than Eric Bischoff. So I think the situation we're going to end up being in is Eric Bischoff tries to make SmackDown more like Raw, and Paul Heyman is trying to drag Raw kicking and screaming in a new creative direction. And they both end up being somewhere in the middle. That's what I'm afraid is going to happen.
What you're going to say is SmackDown's quality will instantly decline because the very thing that made it popular is not going to be there. But Raw, which is meant to be the A show, is going to be given the very things it needs to be an A show. So they're just switching places effectively.
Well, I don't trust that Raw will be allowed to use those things effectively. And one of the symptoms of that is this fucking no wrestling during the ad breaks rule, which has caused the rise in 2 out of 3 falls matches.
Can we just also throw out that this week, I have to get this out here before I forget, that Kevin Owens basically did a really great job of pretty much shitting on Dolph Ziggler. And it was just exactly what everyone has wanted to say to Dolph Ziggler for years.
Yeah, it should have been you 8 years ago.
No, you are not coming out here to say it should have been you. It should have been you. It should have been you 8 years ago, and it kind of was for a bit, but now it's not.
Yeah.
You don't think you belongs in a eating contest. Well, yeah, but if I was in that, I'd actually win, which is more than you can say about wrestling matches.
Yeah, but going through it chronologically, Raw was alright. There was one segment that was just really weird for me, and I'm sure we'll get to that.
Please let me
think you know the one I'm talking about.
Please let me cover that. I showed that to Liz. Even she was going, "That is the stupidest fucking thing I've ever seen."
Yeah. And again, I am already sick of Rollins. Just don't separate them on screen, but just keep them.
Okay, here's the thing.
Or even keep them separate.
But Mike Bennett, outside of WWE, Maria and him were a good act together. I mean, hell, AJ Styles and the club can ultimately end that they've got Maria and beaten the shit out of her in front of him in Japan.
Yeah.
Maria has eaten a Styles clash from AJ.
Oh no.
And even, I think, a super kick from the Bucks. She's had the shit. But with Raw, it was refreshing to not have another fucking match with Baron Goddamn Corbin. I don't care what Kurt Angle is about him being the greatest heel in wrestling today. I disagree completely.
Well, you were just saying, I believe I made a comment about it being domestic abuse, but
Yeah, it
going
is.
in the opposite
Oh, yeah, it
direction,
is. It is domestic abuse.
and it being a good show of, yeah, it actually can be the woman abusing man, because it was basically that, but
Oh, it
TV,
was.
and I was just like, I was rather sickened
It was
by it.
It was emasculating him for drama. It was emasculating Mike Bennett, who we'll get into on this as to why that is a horrible thing to do to him at this point, as to with his real life issues.
Well,
But
real life issues
but
aside, who does this help?
look, well, hun, we can't just jump into the swimming pool without trunks on. We've got to go through the situation of putting the trunks on first.
I know. Nicole heard you guys talking.
Oh, yeah.
She was like, the gate's open, out of here and seen Daddy. So
Yeah.
she came up and saw you.
Of course. Oh, yeah, the Street Profits turned up, and I have no comment for what I saw.
Okay.
It was like Crime Time, but I don't know if it was more or less offensive. I mean, I will say this, at least the Street Profits didn't grab a random whitey for a car and beat them up and rob the car like Prime Time debuted.
Oh, God.
Prime Time.
Oh, don't you remember that?
I do remember.
Where Crime Time literally jumped a car, pulled a white guy, and goes, oh, look, poor Whitey, and then booted him in the face and nicked his car. Oh, and don't forget that whole thing where Triple H thought every black man in the world had a gun.
Yeah. Oh.
And Shawn Michaels had to speak jive to them.
This was in 2007.
I know! And Shawn's from Texas. I don't know if that makes it more hilarious that he can speak jive.
You know, they spoke jive down there.
Look, there are implications as to why I think he could speak jive. I just don't want to say them on this podcast.
Oh.
But less about WWE and the fact that Vince finds racism to be hilarious. I mean, just look at his whole thing with Booker T and Sabu.
It's not that he finds it hilarious, it's that he thinks it's okay.
Or he thinks it's true.
If that's the case, dear God, what do you think from Uganda were?
I'm sorry?
If that's the case, he thinks it's maybe true. What does he think the people of Uganda are when looking at Kamala?
Oh, good Lord.
I don't want to say it on the air.
Exactly. Or Samba Simba. But moving on, the Street Profits maybe aren't as offensive by virtue of the fact that they didn't steal a car from a white guy.
Yeah.
And then hustling money, though they do talk about swag a lot.
Okay, this is less overtly problematic, but do you remember the Highlanders?
Yes. I mean, I get that they were trying to make them the new age version of the Bushwhackers, and that the fact that one of them turned up in the audience of TNA at one point to watch the show ruined their career forever.
Yeah.
I liked the Highlanders just because the silly they did.
Yeah. The skits were funny.
I also liked their bits with Roddy Piper.
Yeah. It's rare that WWE does comedy well. But
Highlanders worked for me mainly just because it was 2006. Everything was stupid. The worst version of DX was around. It takes a lot to be the worst version of DX, to be honest. Let's be fair.
True.
The tag division, well, to be fair, that era, they buried the entire tag division, and at one point when they were forced to apologise on air, they went, well, the tag division was crap anyway, so what did we really destroy? Yeah, Triple H did that. So, yeah. But the Street Profits, I haven't seen much of their work in NXT. I know they became the NXT Tag Team Champions by virtue of the Vikings leaving and coming to the main roster. Speaking of the Viking Raiders teaming up with Samoa Joe, Kofi giving the middle finger on Raw.
Yeah, they're flagging it.
Well, Well, I told you before this broadcast started that they're planning to kill the quote-unquote PG era off because Fox don't want it.
I understand that, but I also think...
Here's the thing. You've also remember WWE is still in this mindset that their most successful era is still the Attitude Era. And here's the thing. We've discussed on this podcast multiple times, and I think you, me, and Ian can attest that there was a lot of shit in the Attitude Era. It wasn't all Stone Cold, The Rock, DX, and The Nation. There was also a lot of, there's also the Brawl for All, Sable,
and the Kennel from Hell.
Oh, and don't forget the Owen Hart incident.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of tragedy. Also, and I'm just going to throw it out, the Dungeon of Doom.
Yeah.
I don't know if either of you watched the video of that Brian Zane put up that I put in the post. I really think you should. If only to watch Giant run over Hulk Hogan's motorcycle and watch him angrily bang on the door of a monster truck while the Big Show sticks his head out and then does a cartoon laugh. Complete with throwing his head back and laughing hysterically while Hogan's like, Gah! Gah! Ah! Oh, and then I've started the fact that Hogan apparently killed Big Show and then he suddenly appeared 5 seconds later for his match.
Yeah.
Oh, God. It's worth watching that video just for all the silly stuff the Dungeon of Doom did. Even Kevin Sullivan booking his own divorce, quite literally.
Whenever I hear Dungeon of Doom, I'm suddenly reminded of Giant Haystacks.
That's because he was Loch Ness.
I know, and it's very sad when you think back to it.
Well, he really wasn't in good shape to begin with. He was literally in the thing to, be another opponent for Hulk Hogan, and then couldn't even have the match because he had to leave due to his cancer. But not before putting on what is basically the worst match he's ever put on ever against the Big Show.
I mean, imagine if he didn't have his cancer. I mean, how would things have gotten?
He was part of the Dungeon of Doom, probably not well, because only one person came out of that entire storyline apart from Hulk Hogan smelling like roses, and that was the Big Show. Everyone else went downhill. Conan, Meng, Vader.
I mean, he was up to fight Hogan.
Oh yeah, he was up fighting, but the entire point of the gimmick, the Dungeon of Doom, was to get Hogan over. Basically, recreate the 80s and create an entire group of people specially made to fight Hogan and then job to him. I mean, keep in mind, at one point, the main event for the WCW title was him versus Brutus the goddamn Barber, who was then called the Butcher.
I mean,
then Zodiac.
I mean, but to fight Hogan, that's an honor.
You say that, but again, he was literally there to just be pinned. That was literally it. He was a big guy to be pinned. Hogan at one point even to bring Yokozuna into WCW just to beat him. But then Yoko died. He brought in the Warrior just to make him lose so he could avenge his WrestleMania 6 loss. I don't think he would have done well in WCW, especially around 96 when the NWO was forming. So I can't really say. Moving on on Raw.
Yeah.
I remember Drake Maverick was just pissed off and just had enough of R-Truth. I feel you there. And then suddenly just whacked him over the head with a case and pinned him.
Yep.
And then ran off, and his wife didn't seem very happy.
Yeah. Oh, this is going to go on for a good while yet, isn't it?
I've got this feeling that what's going to happen is we're going to somehow get a camera in Drake Maverick's honeymoon suite where he's going to have finished with his wife. He's going to be in bed with his wife, and it's going to have been implied that they've just had sex, but now he just needs to take a break to take a drink. Leave the bed, the camera will follow him, he has a drink, goes back, and then our Bruce going to be in the bed in a wedding dress or something. They're going to jump him and pin him. And then run off. And then Drake Maverick's going to be depressed.
Yeah.
going to get this going on for longer and longer and longer because that's all the 24/7 title is, a poorly conceived belt for with a poorly conceived story tagged onto it, with the only redeeming feature being that R-Truth apparently has gone to being crazy and thinking things different things.
It's still more fun than a lot of the rest of the show.
European 7-Eleven Championship. Just, I mean, granted, yes, it is better than most of the show, but let's face it, if the show picks up in quality, where does it leave the 24/7 title?
Well, you would think that would also pick up in quality with it, eventually.
I hope so. I mean, for fuck's sake, give EC3 something. Oh, and of course, Mike and Maria Kanellis made their Raw debut.
Yeah, that was weird.
It was weird and made worse. The main event, my wife feels, is domestic abuse. But here's the thing you've got to remember with Mike Kanellis. When he joined the WWE, he had a lot of problems, which WWE did help pay for his thing, and even did a redemption story thing on the network thing about his issues with drugs, alcohol abuse, and all these other things that have gone wrong in his life. Then they bring him back to 205 Live to make sure he's back up to speed, put him on Raw, and then basically emasculate him on Raw in front of his wife. And, WWE's ultimate attack these days seems to be insulting people's family and children.
Yeah, I was gonna come on to that. It's like he's committed the cardinal sin of wrestling. He talked about his kids. I'm like, fuck off.
Drew McIntyre. What? I hate you, Roman, and I'm gonna fucking kill you. I don't care. I'm gonna beat you up. I'm gonna beat you up anyway. Well, I'm gonna beat up your friends and cripple them. Yeah, and I'll just hit you harder. Yeah, and then I'm gonna beat you up so bad, your kids.
No, Sam, you don't understand. You do not mention another man's kids.
The fuck, you? Yeah, but Roman Reigns wants to murder people. The Miz got threatened, but did nothing about it because it's the fucking Miz. He's a fucking waste of space to begin with.
He's better than he used to be. I don't buy him as a face.
And Rey Mysterio's entire storyline seems to be about family and people. I mean, for fuck's sake, we've already done the Dominic thing years ago, remember? Yeah. Eddie Guerrero already did the whole thing that Dominic was just a child that he had with a random whore he fucked, and then he gave it to Ray because Ray was he had
impotent
or something. Yeah, he had something wrong with him, so he was shooting a lot of blanks. So Eddie gave him one of the many bastards he had.
They fought for custody of a child in a ladder match.
Which Vicky Guerrero still fucked up, and Eddie actually freaked out and screamed at her for. Watch the match and listen to Vicky and go, "Where the fuck is Vicky?"
Yeah.
I can just imagine she's like, "The fuck told you to come out late, Vato?"
Oh.
Frog splash that bitch.
Okay.
But yeah, they've already done the whole. Yeah, but I'm just gonna say Eddie did it better.
Yeah.
But it's just empty threats about. I mean, unless they actually bring someone's kid in and beat them up, which would be hilarious. Especially if they're not. I mean, if they're too young, obviously not. I mean, I don't think you should a small child and lock them in the coquina clutch. I'm just saying that threatening, he's not actually going to do anything. This never amounts to anything unless there's a home invasion storyline. And again, you can Pillman your way out of that by owning a gun. Apparently,
it was nice to see Taker again. Although he said, "Shane, you may be the best in this world." No. Don't acknowledge it.
Okay, here's the thing. Undertaker's wrestling skills have not improved, have actually started to degrade due to his age. This is not no one's fault. This is just what age does to us. But his promo skills seem to have gone down the toilet as well, because that was the worst Undertaker
That
promo
was
I've ever.
it was very scripted. You could tell that those were someone else's words.
They did feel. Look, Undertaker. Look, listen, Mark. Can I call you Mark? You're trying way too hard here. You're the fucking Undertaker. You don't need to do anything. You could intimidate and get your point across just by flinging fucking lightning.
He doesn't even need to speak, really. He could stare them down, and that would be enough.
He doesn't need to do anything. He just needs to do that whole thing that guy from One Punch Season 2 does and just stare at things, and people will instantly buy it. Undertaker could intimidate his breakfast into staying fresh. Mark, dear. What? Your cornflakes are going to get soggy. Dung. No, they won't. Back to reading his paper after staring at the milk intently after putting his eyeshadow on. Eat up your breakfast before it gets cold. No, I just kind of imagine every time he comes down.
I can't imagine the Undertaker eating cereal. I imagine he's a steak and eggs guy for breakfast.
I kind of imagined him more of the guy when Michelle makes breakfast. Or when Michelle has made Undertaker's breakfast, like you hear a gong when he wakes up, and she's like, "Oh, good, right on time." And then suddenly a bunch of hooded people come down the stairs and stand at the end, and then Paul comes down and goes, "The Undertaker is coming." Oh, I know. I just heard the gong. That implies Mark has just woken up. Because he always bangs the fucking gong when he's awake. That is my signal to make breakfast. He does not need to have these people come and stay with us for days on end, which I also have to cook for, and you, Paul, who's been dead for several years.
And then the organ starts playing. And then fire in the kitchen.
Now he's brought someone in to play the fucking organ.
And the kitchen's on fire, and Kane comes in.
Don't you have a county to run? Well,
I got bored.
The mayor of Knox County. That's a better moniker than any wrestling moniker he's had.
Well, look, it's better than Kane, the good guy rapist.
Nobody actually called him that, though.
No, but that's what he was.
They implied it for a while. WWE's definition of morality is weird.
For those who don't remember, Brian Zane's already done these things. He's one of the people who referred to him as Kane, the good guy rapist, because that's what he was. He literally kidnapped Lita, raped her so she wouldn't. There was consent that she'd have sex with him, so he wouldn't kill Matt Hardy. But he did rape her, essentially, impregnated her, married her against her will. Then a miscarriage happened after Gene smacked him with a chair, and then Kane became the de facto good guy because he'd accidentally killed the baby.
Yeah, that whole thing was really...
I want to remind people, Lita didn't want, and now suddenly she cared about it because Snitsky killed it. And then after that anyway, she got with Edge and was happy that the baby was dead and even thanked Snitsky for it.
Right.
Can I suck your toes afterwards?
That came later.
Yeah.
That came later, and there are many stories of Snitsky and feats, oddly enough, that I don't want to get into, that he willingly shared.
I'm trying to get the image of him doing it to Matt Young out.
That when Booker T was going through his freaks are attracted to me thing.
And for some reason, the $1 Million Man was there.
Yeah, that was, I guess, by the standards of that day, he was eccentric. Might as well, it would have made more sense if Virgil was there.
Yeah.
You can always tell how noteworthy a week in wrestling was by how long we spend talking about the past.
Yeah, so let's not focus on the past. Instead, let's focus on what happened early this week.
Which is still technically the past, but the more recent past.
But yeah, basically the Maria Kanellis and Mike Kanellis bit, that was just uncomfortable. The whole, oh, you're not a man, I'm pregnant, just so she could get out of being beaten up by Becky, who really looked like, okay, this is uncomfortable. Then she emasculated her real-life husband on screen.
Saying that next time she should ask Becky Lynch to impregnate her, which is, like, physically impossible, but oh well.
They made a tweet about it, and Becky responded with, "You're welcome." And she's pregnant on Twitter, to which she responded, "You're welcome." And, then went on to say he wasn't a man and everything, which honestly, yeah, it was domestic. It was pretty much domestic abuse or just drama for drama's sake. Way to debut a new star. Keep in mind, again, Mike Kanellis has been off television for a very long time. 205 Live doesn't count because, as Kenta will tell you, they don't give a shit or even pay attention to what's on that show. They don't care. 205 Live is where they cut your nuts off and just leave you.
Yeah.
And what do they do? And what do they do when they bring him back? Oh, let's emasculate this brand new wrestler to you people in front of you. I mean, you know who Maria is. I mean, she was part of the shit era of women's wrestling, but she's improved on the indies.
Yeah, she left and did her best work after that.
Yeah. And here is a new wrestler you've never seen before, unless you watched the 2 week SmackDown where he murdered Sami Zayn and just disappeared. That's now on television with a new look. And he was DLC in 2K19, but you wouldn't know who he was. And here he is getting his ass kicked.
And then being chewed out by his wife.
He tapped out to Becky, which is fine for Becky, terrible for him. And then he's just left to sit in the middle of the ring being basically lambasted by his wife. I mean, I just want to throw out the last time they did a woman beating up a guy domestically was in the 90s Attitude Era with Meat. Now, for those who don't remember, Meat, or Sean Stasiak, had a harem of women who would basically beat the shit out of him and then pretend to be beaten up themselves whenever he tried to argue back or ask them not to. They would fake black eyes and tell the wrestlers he'd domestically abused them so that he'd get beaten up on. Meanwhile, they would physically and mentally degrade him. So, yeah, they have done this storyline before, and it didn't end well for Sean. It's not looking well for Mike.
Yeah, that's some...
Look, I'm just speaking from the past. I'm not sure where this is going, but I'm just saying...
uncomfortable shit right there.
Uncomfortable because, not just because it's a woman abusing a man, it's uncomfortable because it is what it is. Anyone being domestically abused is fucking wrong, especially when you have been in those kind of situations. It's uncomfortable, and the problem is that male domestic abuse does happen, and it's not reported as much.
Well, even like leaving all of that out, and who does that segment help? Because it's like, was it designed to get Becky Lynch over? Or because she was already over as hell and tapping out Mike Kanellis wouldn't have changed that because this is the first time we've seen him in God knows how long?
Not only that, Ollie, you've got to remember this. Out of everyone in that feud, with, the four-way feud of Lacey Evans, Baron Goddamn Corbin, Seth Freak Rollins, and Becky the Man Lynch, Becky's the most over out of any of them.
Yeah, she is. And I love that.
Yeah, Becky is more over than anyone in that feud, even Seth.
Yeah.
So it doesn't help her. It damages Mike.
By the way, did you know that Seth and Becky Lynch are a couple?
Yes, I'm fully aware that Rollins is a thing.
Yeah.
Rollins sounds like a mess in my back garden.
Yeah. Becky Lynch and her wife. No, I'm kidding.
Well, Seth would be the bitch in that relationship, let's face it.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
So in a relationship with Becky Lynch, I struggle to think of anyone else. I struggle to think of anyone but Becky Lynch wearing the pants in any relationship that she is involved in.
Speaking of women, I know this is a random fact. Did you know that Charlotte Flair actually debuted in WCW?
I did not know that.
She appeared at a time when Daphne Crowbar and David Flair broke into Ric Flair's house and started messing with his shit.
God, she must have been like a child back then.
She wasn't as old as David she wasn't that young either.
All right.
But she was referred to as Ashley Flair at the time, and she just walked in as Daphne, who for some reason had pink hair, and Crow and David were going around wearing mixed robes, jumping on his bed and basically smashing his shit. Hey, we all go through teenage destruction differently.
Yeah.
Some of us just dress up as Sting and beat up our dads because Vince Russo told us to.
Speaking of Sting, actually, on WWE's Instagram account, they posted an image of Undertaker in his prime opposite Sting in his prime and said, "Imagine." And there is speculation as to whether or not they're teasing another comeback match.
Now, Sting, I think, could, if I don't know how Sting's physical condition these days, I think the build up to the feud, if they did it right, would be more interesting than the actual match. I think it would be cool just to reference it, and maybe something like Undertaker turns up and something, and after he finishes Shane or something, after it's all done and they give him the ceremonial finish in the ring, it goes dark, and then suddenly Sting's in the rafters looking down at the Undertaker. That alone would get more pops. And then over the weeks, because Sting's mystique, unfortunately, these days can't be replicated as to what it was in the Attitude Era. You have to understand what Sting was in '97 and why you've never seen him reenact it again.
Yeah. Well,
Sting,
even if they are teasing the dream match between Sting and Undertaker, I wanted it years ago. I don't want it now.
It's the same reason why Legends of Wrestling, the Heroes of Wrestling never worked, and why Grandmasters of Wrestling never worked.
Mind you, I said the same about John Cena versus The Undertaker at WrestleMania the other year, and I happily ate my words on that one, because that was amazing.
Well, here's the thing. What if, because they're both legends and stuff, the problem is putting them against each other. What if they teamed up?
We'll be right back, guys.
Okay.
I think that should tell you Ian's opinion on the thing.
Yeah.
No, but just imagine them having a one-off tag team match together against a random jobber team or something.
Yeah. Well, I don't think the one-on-one match should happen because Undertaker's not what he was, and
Undertaker definitely isn't what. Here's the thing: the problem with the Goldberg match,
there's probably only a handful of people anymore that could even get a really good match out of him.
Actually, I think Sting and Undertaker could work. Think about this. Why did the Goldberg and Undertaker match not work very well?
Because Goldberg concussed himself 2 minutes in.
Yes. Goldberg was the problem. Here's the thing that people forget as well. Goldberg was never any good. Goldberg was doing 2-minute squash matches where he basically hurt people constantly, and he hated working for WWE because they wouldn't book him the same way.
Yeah.
That he was used to doing 5-minute, 2-minute squash matches against nobodies, being carried the other few matches. Sting and Undertaker, I think, could work because really all they've got to do, if you want to get a 10-minute match out of them, all you've got to do at the beginning is have the stare down, have the thing at the beginning where Sting holds the bat point at the Undertaker. Undertaker just doesn't move from it and just continues to stare.
Yeah.
Then you get ready, have the stare down. You can have that entire thing, and you can have the mystique carry the first few minutes of the match. Hell, you can even have it end on a cool note, whoever wins all over. Have someone run out and try and take out the Undertaker, and Sting makes the save. Then they both hit their respective finishes, the Tombstone and the Scorpion Death Drop.
Yeah.
Or even hit the Scorpion Death Lock and the Hell's Gate to take out the people who come out to take out Undertaker. Have them pose together.
Yeah. Well,
all you need. That's all you really need, because I think Sting is more than capable of working with Undertaker. Because think about it, Undertaker's moveset is safe, and so is Sting's.
Yeah. I think, I don't know if they're up to a long match, but yeah, I take your point. That's
Yeah, here's the thing. The mystique is what people are interested in, because, again, as I've tried to explain, Sting years ago, what made him work as the Crow gimmick was the mystique of him just appearing. I mean, keep in mind, before his match with Hogan, which was his first real match back in a long time, he hadn't wrestled in a year. He just appeared, like, on the ramp or in the rafters, just looked down for like a year. He didn't do anything. Occasionally he came down and attacked everyone and did like one move on people and then left. Not like what Brock Lesnar does, but he appeared on a weekly basis to like build up what was going on. But they had a lot of things going on at the time to work towards the Sting thing. All they need is the mystique of both of them together at that one time.
yeah.
Let people, because the fact of seeing Sting and the Undertaker together would work. Just seeing together, the mystique would carry that match for the first little bit.
Yeah. Okay, we're 45 minutes in and we've barely talked about the shows, guys.
Let's go on to SmackDown then, and SmackDown.
Well, Raw, what else is there to
there's-
say about that? Okay, so the main event feud is a clusterfuck, and I don't like the tag team element of like both titles. Both champions deserve better opponents, and
They really do. This Baron Corbin monster push they're giving him just does not work.
he has heat, but it's not we want to see you get your ass kicked heat. This is go home heat.
Yes, this is Jeff Jarrett heat.
Yeah, and it's depressingly likely that they are going to put the title on him in the near future because Vince is stubborn.
At least they're not doing the whole Brock Lesnar turning up and, dancing to his beatbox.
Yeah.
I'm the only person who thinks he sits there dancing to Friday on that thing.
I've seen that video where they edited that in. Oh, yeah. But yes, SmackDown. Oh no, we forgot about the most crucial part of Raw.
Go on.
AJ versus Ricochet.
Oh yes. Now I did like that. Ricochet just won via one of the most interesting roll-ups I've ever seen.
Yeah,
and
quite
then
a quick and decisive win as well.
But here's the thing: do not fuck up the club, because they have just signed new contracts to WWE.
Yeah.
My guess is that they have made a very serious deal with the club to keep them there.
Yeah, and
because they were very adamant to leave.
Yeah, and if they have signed new deals to come back, they had better not fuck them up, because they've got something here, and, well, I don't think they can afford to screw this one up.
With a wildcard rule, they could even bring Finn Balor into the mix.
Yeah, because, if they screw up the club, they can eventually go somewhere else, read to AEW and do it better. But
yeah, it will not be hard for anyone else to, make it work better.
Only WWE suffers long term from this. If they get it wrong, I think. Well, I don't know about long term, but
yeah. So moving on to, the club basically murdered Ricochet.
Yeah, and AJ's heel now, and
AJ does some of his best work when he's heel.
Yeah, I think that has more to do with the fact that WWE don't have a clue how to book faces, but it's still, AJ is still a really good heel.
Yeah.
I mean, all you've got to do is look at The Miz to see, the discrepancy between face and heel booking in WWE.
Speaking of, just to get this out of the way, Roman Reigns recently, Vince has recently announced that he's, moving on to do movies and stuff in 2021. So maybe in 2 years, 2 years away, he'll be gone.
Yeah, I actually wouldn't mind him having another title reign, one more before he goes. But
Vince has responded to this the calm and rational way you'd expect him to.
Oh, so basically, are we going to see Roman wheeled out in a baby harness or something?
Well, maybe Vince is going to personally go over and piss on certain things that Roman loves. And scream, "How dare you leave me? How dare you leave me? I put so much investment in you." Look, to be honest, Roman was never going to be long term anyway, and they should have known he wouldn't work. I think Roman even knows that he's never going to be a long term success in the fans' eyes.
Well,
'Cause
it's a
he's
shame
that
because he could have been.
it's not his fault. He's victim. He's had 5 years of the company ruining him in the eyes of the fans, and it's very hard for him to come out of that polarizing, situation because it's done now.
Yeah.
He
I think
is. He's
a
had
lot
more than
of the bad will of the fans has gone now, but
The thing is, the damage to him has been done, and he's not going to be someone who can carry the company anymore reliably. And I think he started to understand, because here's the thing. Fun fact: Brian Zane has been on YouTube longer than The Rock has been an active competitor in WWE. That's depressing. But also, The Rock is doing so much better for himself outside of wrestling. Oh, I've got to throw this out. Bray Wyatt recently forgave The Rock for his pizza pockets joke at WrestleMania, and The Rock responded with the best tweet ever,
go on.
saying it was something along the lines of, "It takes a big man to admit they've got a problem with, they've a eating problem, and I'm very proud of you, bro. P.S. You're a batshit crazy, and I love you." Yeah, The Rock loves this whole thing with Bray Wyatt.
But yeah,
Hell,
I'm loving this AJ
Braun
Ricochet feud.
Yeah, Braun Strowman and Bobby Lashley destroying the Titantron effectively.
Corey Graves said shit on air.
Corey Graves is a shit.
If you say so.
And Renee Young spoke robotically.
Oh, come on, leave her alone.
No. She does. Her delivery is fucking awful. She could not be any less interested in what she's looking at.
Well, to be fair, if I were her, I'd be constantly looking over my shoulder as well. Because...
Why? Because John Moxley might have put drawing pins in her shoes.
Well, no. Because...
Just for his own sexual gratification.
No, because... I'm not... We have reason to believe that Vince is not above punishing people for their relationships.
Vince McMahon is personally making it his mission to jeopardize and ruin a charity wrestling show because he feels threatened by it.
Jesus H.
Because recently, that you might have heard, AEW is doing a show called Fight for the Fallen. The reason it's called that is because the entire thing is going towards paying for victims of gun violence.
Yeah.
It's a charity event, and Vince has decided, well, we don't have any actual WWE events on, but we have a close relationship with Evolve. So we're going to have Evolve's show. Evolve is going to air this show on the WWE network at the same time as this charity show.
Oh, you fucking dick.
They're also planning another show, and all these other things. I mean, the plans bring Stone Cold Steve Austin back to Raw and stuff to compete when AEW goes, onto a regular show. They're already planning something against All In. Vince is attacking everything he possibly can of AEW's at this point. And Kenny Omega even called them out on a lot of their shit.
Yeah.
Mainly, he was disgusted. Basically, he was disgusted with them in general for their whole acceptance of blood money, which is their whole Saudi Arabia thing.
That's the thing, though. Wrestling viewership is not a zero-sum game. That people are watching AEW does not mean they're not watching WWE.
Well, no, they're trying to beat them on viewers because the thing is, they can't sell out arenas anymore because no one wants to come. But AEW have outsold them, and even sold out their arenas in 15 minutes. So they're going to have to try and beat them on views. That's all they can do anymore. But it is disgusting that it's a charity event for a very serious cause in America, by the way.
Yeah.
And Vince is competing against that.
Yeah, you'd think he'd let him have that.
Look, to be honest, after the whole you heard about what Vince allegedly wanted Dean Ambrose to say when Roman got leukemia.
Yeah, I heard. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how low Vince is. Vince is willing to use people's illnesses. He's not above attacking things for good causes if he needs to. He's Eric Cartman in wrestling form. You know that whole thing when Eric Cartman has that entire thing where he says he's going to kill himself, and then but then an actual thing that's a problem that's happening in the town that needs awareness, and he sabotages it completely with his own thing just for his own ego.
Yeah.
That is what Vince does.
Right.
It doesn't matter if it's like the second coming of Christ. He'll still, like AEW suddenly got Jesus Christ himself appearing before the masses for the first time in 2,000 years. Vince would still find a way to go, yeah, well, we've got Buddha. Yeah, your Jesus ain't so good now.
Okay, we're 5 minutes away from the hour mark, so I think we should probably move on to SmackDown.
SmackDown. Oh boy. Oh boy.
Right.
Oh boy.
Okay. There are only a couple of things I want to say, so I'll get them out of the way. You know what I think of this 24/7 stuff. I know what you think of this 24/7 stuff. The Dolph Ziggler and Kevin Owens tag team main event was pretty good. The right team won.
Can we talk about how hilarious that entire thing with Kevin Owens was? Like, even Kevin Owens has had enough of Dolph Ziggler's shit.
Yeah. So they're turning Kevin Owens' face again, are they? That's what
I don't know. I thought the throwing them together as a tag team thing was very. Oh, I see what they're doing. They're trying to do the whole Sheamus and Cesaro thing, but it's not going to work that way.
Well, they didn't do the Sheamus and Cesaro thing. Like, Kevin Owens beat Dolph Ziggler up after the match. Well, he stunned him after the match.
No,
after they lost to Heavy Machinery, which was the right call. And, yeah, I like where that's going. The other thing I want to say, you know I love everything about Kofi's title reign so far. With that said, I don't think he's had the title reign he deserves. I don't think he's had the opponents he deserves.
No.
With the exception of Kevin Owens, they didn't give Dolph Ziggler as his opponent the weight that he deserved either. And, you know, I'm still waiting for the really good sort of, like, bump in the road for his title reign, a really good opponent, and I think it is Samoa Joe, but here's the thing. I'm torn on where I want this to go, because while I love Kofi and I don't think he's had the title reign he deserves, Joe has been built up and knocked back a few times now. So,
but what if they trade the title a couple of times?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Hold on a second. No. Oh, sorry about that. Knocked something off the desk.
I think that Joe taking the title, like having a surprise win, holding it for a while, and then losing it back to Kofi, and them having like an actual trading feud, because it could work.
Yeah. I'm wondering whether or not they should pull the trigger on Joe winning the title now, but also, like, trading it back and forth with Kofi. Yeah, that'd be good. But also, I don't think Joe is going to win because he looks far too strong right now. He has made Kofi tap out, and he's laid him out like twice in a row. And the match is a week tomorrow. So,
yeah. I mean, another thing to talk about the Nikki Cross thing. Nikki's really fucking growing on me on Raw and SmackDown. I like the story they're giving. I like the story they're giving her because she's not quite the bad guy, but she's also not a good guy. But she's very misguided.
Yeah.
Because her husband is now back in NXT for
Right.
him. Killian Dane, he's back in NXT.
Yeah. Big Dano to you.
Yeah. It's, Alexander Wolf is in NXT UK with Walter. Yeah, that's a thing. Eric Young is currently chasing after the random face in the 24/7 title run. But let's face it, Nikki is on her own now, and paying the psychotic Scott really works for her. And I liked when she did I liked this Moment of Bliss thing. It let her not play the crazy laughing woman and let her actually seem like a person. And you can kind of sympathize with her that, look, I came here, I know my accent's different, so I know I'm difficult to understand. And Alexa was the only person who was nice enough to me to not, because to be fair, Bailey even thought I was a crazy person.
Yeah.
And Bailey has done the whole look. The reason I say horrible things about her, a lot of the women in there seem to say the same thing. Is look, we've been here a lot longer. We know how Alexa is. I was laughing when they said, "Think of all the things that Alexa's done for this division. What did she do exactly?" Seriously, what did Alexa do other than get injured and then sit down on a podium for a while and then say she was the host of WrestleMania, then got interrupted, didn't even get to finish her segment because Brock Lesnar was throwing a bitch fit that night?
Come on, she was good in the title reigns that she had.
She's okay. Look, she's not a trailblazer or anything monumental.
Yeah.
Not really. She's not that She's not impressive per se in comparison to say some of the other women there. I mean, granted, Asuka's flame has been all but blown out at this point.
Yeah, that's tragic.
Kabuki warriors indeed. But I did like the whole thing when that Bailey was like, "No, the question I want to ask you is what you did, what Alexa couldn't do. You beat two people she couldn't. So why am I facing her at the pay-per-view and not you, who has actually beaten me and beaten all the people that Alexa can't?"
Right. Yeah.
And it was a good point. And to be fair, Bailey just about beat her on SmackDown. I think that putting the title on Nikki would be a good. Look, there's two ways it can go with Nikki though. Nikki could actually win the title, and then get a whole thing where she thinks she's won it, and then Alexa's tries to coax her into title matches with her, so she can win it, or she gets really jealous and screws Nikki out of a title thing, pure jealousy because she's about to win. Kind of thing. That's the only way I can see this really going.
Yeah.
And of course, Heavy Machinery now have that title match against Tag Team Champions, so that's all good.
Yeah. Ian, do you have any thoughts?
Ian went off a while ago.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then, of course, Aleister Black has got an opponent for Extreme Rules.
Who is it?
I don't know. He just said that someone knocked on his door and he's going to face them at Extreme Rules. Ember Moon and fought with Mandy Rose again.
Yeah.
That's really all there is to say on that.
I'm not really into that feud.
And R-Truth told Rick to enjoy his honeymoon.
Yeah.
That's not ominous.
Yeah. Well, I'll be keeping my eye on the YouTube stuff to see where that goes. I think that's about it.
Well, the only stuff that's happened in NXT recently is Killian Dane's turning up. They're doing a breakout kind of tournament thing in NXT for some new stars. Tyler Breeze has become a regular member of NXT, by the way.
Yeah. Cool.
He's gone right back. And I don't think anything else has happened recently.
Right.
nothing else is happening other than WWE is now promoting the Evolve thing, because a lot of the WWE wrestlers that are there used to work in Evolve, and WWE now has a working relationship with them. So I guess why not?
Yeah. Huh.
So yay.
Ah. Cool. Right. Well, if that's everything then, yeah. Um. We've gone a little over the hour mark, but it's no biggie. Thanks for listening. And we'll next week will be our pay-per-view predictions sort of thing.
Hey.
Hey Ian,
Hey.
we were just wrapping up actually. Although it's apropos that you return now. What did you think of the forfeit I suggested for Sam for losing the last predictions contest?
What was that again?
Right, basically a 2-hour stream of him trying to do the $1 million tower thing on 2K19.
Oh, okay.
And if he manages to do it within that time, he gets to end the stream early and gets a bonus point for predictions for this pay-per-view, which we'll be making our predictions on next week's podcast.
Okay, I'm all right with that.
Yeah. Do you have any closing thoughts on the week in wrestling, Ian? Anything you'd like to say on...
The only thing I can say is that WWE is not getting any.
WWE is what? Sorry, you broke up there.
WWE is not getting any better.
There are signs that it might, but let's give it a couple more weeks. It was weird that they started the Heyman and Bischoff eras like a week before a pay-per-view. Like, wait a couple of weeks. You know, start stories afresh with it, but other than that, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks for listening. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.